Welcome back to the McCann Dogs Podcast, Season 3, Episode 8. And
you're going to be late
for a very important date.
Ooh, good one.
Maybe you should take over the opening line joke because that was pretty good. And I was thinking on the fly and I was like, I'm not coming up with anything.
I'm jumping in this time.
Robbie and I have a date.
We do have a date tonight.
We do. We're going to go and enjoy some tasty dinner right after we're finished with our work here today, which is exciting. Robbie and I are dating. All righty. So working together, dating. Soon it's going to be divorce. I just know it.
Uh-oh.
Just kidding. All righty. So we are going to talk today about something that is a very common problem amongst many, many dogs and their owners, and that is jumping up. And with this topic, there's a whole bunch of pieces to it. People are often really eager to solve this problem. How do I stop? My dog jumps on people. My dog surfs the counters. My dog tries to steal things off the counters, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not just the one solution for this. There are several things that you need to consider when you're trying to stop a jumping up problem. And it's a little bit of a different tactic if you're heading into a relationship with a puppy and you don't have a jumping up problem just yet, versus if you have a dog that has a chronic jumping up problem. So we're going to talk about both angles and how we would approach that today. So Robbie, first and foremost, let's talk about the puppy angle. So you have a baby puppy, you bring them home. We just did an episode on socialization a couple of episodes ago, and we talked a lot about how to properly socialize and how socialization is often misunderstood. But it's an important factor in the lives of our puppies. So as you are thinking about socialization and thinking forward to wanting to create a dog that doesn't jump on people, what are some of the things that you are considering?
Well, with puppies, our main goal basically is to prevent the puppy from being able to rehearse problems that we don't want to have to deal with later on in the future. So for a puppy, I'm going to approach this from a management perspective as opposed to worrying so much about a training perspective in the very beginning. So I'm going to prevent my puppy from basically being able to jump on people when they are greeting someone or jump on the kitchen counter. And the way I'm going to do that is by having a leash on my puppy so that I have control of my puppy. Or if I need to, I'm going to cheat and I'm going to pick my puppy up. So if my puppy's, going to greet someone, I might just pick my puppy up, hold my puppy in my arms, and allow them to say hi to someone. And that way I'm just preventing them from rehearsing that behavior of jumping up to say hi. Or if I'm, in the kitchen and my puppy's hanging out with me, I'm going to have a leash on that puppy and I'm going to be supervising my puppy. And I wouldn't do this during, when I'm actually getting dinner ready. I would set up a training situation where I'm pretending to get dinner ready and I would have that puppy in the kitchen with me. I'd have the leash on the floor. I'd be standing on the leash, not to peg the puppy to the floor, but to stand on the leash so I have control of the puppy. And I might practice chopping something on the counter, or I might get some cheese slices and open them up. A lot of puppies figure out very quickly what that sound of that cellophane is if you treat your puppy with cheese. And that way, if my puppy does jump up, my puppy just self-corrects. They just hit the line as they jump up. And it's not anything harsh or nasty. It's just basically a prevention tactic. And then when my puppy's making the choice to not jump up, I would yes and reward that. Let my puppy know.
Nice.
Keep the feet on the floor. I'm going to make it worth your while. But it's about prevention. It's about not allowing the dog to have opportunities to do the things we don't want them to do and then have to correct them for it later. We want to just not let them even go there in the first place.
Yeah. That is so perfect in a nutshell. The rehearsal of things, and we've all heard practice makes perfect, right? And that is true even when the thing that you are practicing is not the perfect thing. So if we practice doing a lopsided cartwheel over and over and over again, and we never make any moves to get better, the muscle memory that kicks in is for that lopsided cartwheel. And rehearsal with dogs works in a very similar fashion. And that was a very big simplification of it, of course. But it really does boil down to that in a nutshell. Dogs will do what they're allowed to do over and over again, and we all build habits. We're all hardwired towards efficiency, which means that our behaviors become habitualized so that they can become automatic and we don't have to think about them as much. So this is the way we are built as creatures. Dogs are very similar, and we want to make sure that they don't get an opportunity to rehearse the exact thing that we don't want them doing, because that is what they will end up doing. So practice makes perfect, even when it is the thing that you don't want them practicing. There's a couple of things that you mentioned in there that I want to touch on. So, assuming that you have enough blessing that you can pick your puppy up, you don't have a St. Bernard puppy or something of that nature. What are some of the things that you're considering once your puppy is up in arms if you're bringing them to greet a person?
Well, I'm going to make sure, first of all, that when they're in my arms, that they are calm. So I'm
Beauty.
not going to approach the person with a puppy that's squirming, going crazy in my arms, trying to jump.
Yeah.
Because if I approach at that time while my puppy's super excited, then I'm reinforcing that excited behavior, which means that eventually when I do place the puppy down on the ground, they're going to have rehearsed being excited in the approach, and which means that it's likely going to lead to jumping up. So I'm going to wait for calmness. So if I, for example, if my neighbor comes over and I've got the puppy in my arms, I'm going to invite the person into my house, and then I would stand maybe, 5-6 feet away from that person. And when my puppy is squirming, I'm simply going to hang on. I'm feeling for that relaxation. I want that moment where my puppy goes, okay.
Yeah.
And the moment I get that, there we go. Good dog. I would praise that. And then I would start to approach the person, or I might have the person approach me. But if the puppy starts to squirm and go, oh, I'm so excited, I can't wait to see that person. Again, I'm going to take a step away or have the person step away, wait for calmness, and then approach again. So I'm rehearsing that approach from a calm perspective for my puppy, as opposed to setting the puppy up to, get all excited the moment they see someone and then go rushing in. Because if I'm getting the crazy behavior when they're in my arms, I'm guaranteed it's going to probably be even worse when they're on the floor or on the ground.
For sure. And one of the things that's really important to us is making sure that our dogs get the best opportunity at information, which means that we don't allow them to self-reward when it comes to behaviors that are unwanted behaviors. So as you're talking about having a puppy up in arms, we're talking about having a struggling puppy potentially because they're excited, etc. It's always going to be best to wait until your puppy's a little bit calmer and then proceed from there. And that's true even if there's no person involved. If you pick up your puppy and then you go to put them down, or you're just holding them in arms and they start struggling, you are best to wait until they settle. Do not say, well-meaning people will often say, put the puppy down. He doesn't want to be held right now. No, you hold on to that puppy calmly, weather the storm. Let them realize that struggling is not ever going to get them their way, because I guarantee you at some point that's either going to be an accident waiting to happen, or it's going to be a situation where they learn that struggling, fighting you, etc., is how they win. And of course, we don't want that adversarial relationship with our puppies. We want them to learn to be cooperative. We want them to learn what we want them to do. So in that case where I started to put my puppy down and they maybe started wiggling, I would pick them right back up again, hold on until he calmed. Then that's better. What a good puppy. Now I'm going to try to put him down again. And I might actually practice just slowly putting him down to make sure that several points along the way, he doesn't start fussing again and struggling. And I can also get in a couple of rewards for him being calm so that conveys, this is what I want you to do instead. So as I'm putting him down, if he's calm, I might say yes, and then either complete putting him down or pick him back up so I can get a treat out and reward him. Or I might have somebody there to reward my puppy for me while I've got him up in arms, which is always a nice way of saying, I can still reinforce you and you can still get great things, even though I don't have a third arm. So another thing that you said in there that I thought we should elaborate on was that if you're thinking about trying to stave off counter surfing, for example, you're in the kitchen and you're faking that you're making dinner. Elaborate on that a little bit. Why are you faking it?
Well, because this is not the sort of thing I want to be dealing with when I'm actually trying to make dinner.
Exactly.
When I'm trying to make dinner, I need to make dinner. So at that time, the puppy's in the crate, in the crate. That way I don't need to worry about what's happening. I can just focus on what I need to do and get the job done. So when ultimately my goal is that I can make dinner while my dogs hang out in the kitchen. I mean, they do now and it's not an issue. But when they're first learning, there's no way I'm setting up a situation where the puppy can then jump on the counter while I've got my hands full and I can't do anything about it. Now the dog's been reinforced. And sure, they probably haven't got anything off the counter, especially if they're puppies. They're not going to get up very high, but they've still had that fun of jumping up. Yeah. And, once they rehearse that, it becomes a game for them. Can I jump up and beat you to it, sort of thing?
Yeah.
They have fun with it. So I'm going to prevent it from happening when I can't deal with it, and then when I can deal with it, I'm going to set that exact sort of situation up so I can just train through it and help my puppy understand what's expected of them in this particular situation.
Absolutely. And we just did an episode on the myth of the stubborn dog. So you can go back and listen to, was that episode 7? For the stubborn dog theories. But basically, what we want to do is we want to create dogs that are cooperative, and we want to give them tools to gain that cooperative nature. So we are going to set up the situation so that we can direct the outcome. We don't want to have a situation where we teach our dogs that if we're not paying attention, they can get into things when we're not necessarily ready for it, or that it's their job to try to evade and try to get in there. One of the things that I always talk about when I'm trying to put things into perspective for students who are thinking, their dog's being stubborn or unwilling to learn, et cetera, is what is the dog being reinforced for? And in that situation where people will often think, well, he didn't get anything off the counter, so he didn't get any reinforcement. Well, that's not true. You're thinking like a human. If we went into the store and we didn't buy the candy bar, we're not getting the reinforcement. But with dogs being scavengers by nature, they get the reinforcement just by jumping up to begin with. So getting to explore that extra area, et cetera, if we're explorers by nature, then we're being rewarded when we're out exploring something new, et cetera. So if you can think about that perspective, dogs being, prone to scavenger behavior and exploration behavior, it's already a big reward when they get those paws up on the counter or when they get their nose in the garbage to sniff, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can look at them as the creatures that they are and think about what's driving their behavior, you'll have a much easier time of getting ahead of these problems. So one of the big reasons that we stop the self-rewarding to begin with is that we want to make sure that that scavenger does not get a reinforcement. So you talked about having a long line or a leash on the dog in the house, which for anybody who's been around McCann dogs for any length of time, that that's one of our hard and fast rules is that the puppy, while they're in training, until they understand how to listen to your voice and you feel confident that they will be reliable on your voice, they have a leash or a line dragging all the time. Mm-hmm. And that's in the house, outside, it's wherever they happen to be. We always have a means of taking control. And we don't treat the leash as a leash when it's a leash in the house. We actually cut the handle off so that it can drag around and not get caught on things. And it's really meant to be a safety brake. So that if our puppies do something or our dogs do something that they shouldn't, we can easily take control. We don't end up playing the keep away game. We don't end up playing catch me if you can. And then there's other opportunities like what you mentioned, where you said that you were stepping on the line to ensure that your dog, if they did jump up to investigate the counter, got a little self-correction. So explain that a little bit further and start from, you said you're not pinning the puppy to the floor. So describe what you're doing here.
Right. So when I have my foot on the leash, what I'm doing is I'm making sure that I'm giving the dog some slack. I want my puppy to have some freedom to move around. I'm not trying to set it up so that my dog can't jump up. I'm setting it up so that my dog, if my dog jumps up, they get that little correction. So it is a matter of playing around with how far up on the leash you're standing. You want to make sure that there's a little bit of slack, but not too much slack. I don't want my puppy to jump, 2 feet in the air and get 2 feet up before they connect with the end of the leash. I have just the right amount of slack. And sometimes that involves constantly having to adjust where my foot is on the leash. And then that way, if the puppy does jump up, it catches them very quickly. It's just a little pop on their collar that reminds them, oh, okay, this is not a good thing to be jumping up. It just catches them with really good timing. And that's an important thing, is the timing, because how many dogs do you see jump up? They jump up and then it takes the human, 5, 6, 7 or longer seconds to get the dog off. And then meanwhile, all they've successfully taught the dog is that it's okay to jump up until I tell you otherwise. Mm-hmm. So we want the dog to learn it's the act of jumping up that earns them the correction, not the fact that they've had their feet on the counter and they've, already stolen, 5 pieces of carrot off the counter. We want to catch them with good timing. And that's why that leash or that line's so important. And it keeps us out of the situation. My dog doesn't associate me with the correction because I'm not doing anything other than standing on it. And they don't know that. They just know that when they jump up, boop, the collar corrects them and they learn pretty quick. This is just not the best idea.
I love that. And the reason that the timing of that is so perfect is because the self-reward is removed, right? The dog goes to jump, they get caught before they actually get up there. And there's no reinforcement. There's a little bit of a negative. And then the other thing that you're doing that you mentioned in there too is that every once in a while, you're going to reinforce your dog for making the right decision in that situation. So describe what that looks like a little bit. Say we're working with a young dog. So a young dog in training still that's maybe, at the beginning of their understanding of this.
Yeah. And the timing of the reward in this case is so important. So what I'm looking for is I'm looking for my dog to make the choice to not jump up. And that's what I'm going to reward. I'm not going to wait till my dog jumps up, corrects itself, and then reward at that point. Because what happens then, if my dog jumps up, gets the correction, and then I immediately reward, dogs figure out chains so quickly. They figure out, oh, I get it. I jump up, I get this little collar correction, and then I get a treat. And it makes it all worthwhile for the dog. It would be like me smacking Shannon and then handing her $20.
Yeah.
She's likely going to say, you know what?
I'll take
that
it.
wasn't so bad. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Do it again and do it again and do it again. So what I'm looking for is for my dog, maybe my dog has jumped up, got the correction, and then says, oh, okay, I'm not jumping up now. I'm going to wait for several seconds. I want to wait to see what behavior my dog commits to at that point. And if I see that my dog is now recognizing, I'm not going to jump up, I'm going to keep my feet on the floor. I've had several seconds, a minimum of 5 seconds of feet still on the floor, then I'm going to reward my dog. So there's not that association with the actual correction. I'm rewarding commitment to remain on the floor rather than the fact that my dog corrected itself.
Perfect. So we ended up talking quite a bit about counter surfing. So let's just finish this off a little. While you're working these exercises, what else are you doing in your overall management to make sure that the dog doesn't just learn to wait until you're out of the room?
Yeah. And then that's something, again, that dogs will figure out very quickly.
Yeah.
They figure out there's 2 sets of rules in life. Those rules that apply when the human's watching and those rules that apply when the human is not watching. And again, it's not that they're not being bad dogs. They've learned sometimes that when there's no human in the room and I jump up, I can do this and nothing happens. So this is, again, comes down to management and prevention. So if I'm not in the room with my young dog and I know that dog is still on occasion trying to jump up, I am not going to leave my dog in that room in the kitchen by itself. I'm going to either bring the dog with me when I leave the room, or I'm going to put my dog in the crate so that I can prevent the situation from occurring.
Yeah. When our dogs are in training, they are also in management. Until our dogs are reliable, until they know and understand what the rules in that situation are, we don't leave it to chance. We don't give them the opportunity to self-reward. And that's because I don't want to spend my whole life training my dog on the basics. And if I have to come back from all the self-rewarding that's been done, it's going to take me that much longer. So one of our instructors, Instructor Carol, is so famous for saying slow is fast. That's her favorite line, and it's so applicable in all these situations. If you take the slow and control approach, you are going to, in the long run, be much, much better off. So make sure that your dog doesn't have access to the thing, to rehearse the thing while they're still in training before you know that they're reliable with these things, and your life will be that much easier. Okay, so I want to go away from counter surfing and I want to go back to greeting manners here. And we talked about having the baby puppy up in arms. Let's talk about having a baby St. Bernard puppy, because you're probably not going to have that dog up in arms. So we need a different tactic for this young puppy who is a little bit heftier than maybe a Bichon or something of that nature.
Sure. And in that situation, I think I would be more inclined to just control the dog with the collar hold, and I would start by teaching my dog long before greeting people that I can control your collar. And when I'm holding your collar, I expect you to be calm and relaxed. So we would take their collar, reward them multiple times while they're calm and relaxed. So they learn, I have control, your job is to relax. And then once I have that working for me, then I can use that in a situation where my dog is going to greet someone. So, my neighbor knocks on the door, I've got my St. Bernard puppy with me, and as the person's coming in, I'm going to have control of the dog's collar, and I'm going to wait for that calmness, reward the calmness. And then when I feel that the dog is calm, then I would have that person approach. If my dog got all excited again, I would have the person move away. I would go back to working, just waiting for the calm, rewarding that. So rather than holding the puppy in my arms, I've still got control, but I'm controlling the puppy with the collar.
I love that. And this is so contrary to, if you think about, the traditional approach to having puppies greet people, where we think that, and we did an episode on socialization just a couple of episodes ago, so I won't get too in depth in this, but we think that the actual interaction is so much more important that we let the manners go all the way out the window. And then unfortunately we do what I was just talking about. We end up making our job that much more difficult in the long run, because now we have to come back from that habit we've created where the dog sees a person and expects to jump all over them, because it's cute when they're puppies, and it's, on some level it's okay when they're puppies, but you have to remember that at 7 weeks of age, their brains are fully developed and they are learning from that point on. So allowing that behavior and allowing it to be rehearsed is them learning what they are going to do as a habit moving forward. So it's so important that we end up with puppies that understand first how to have emotional control before we put them in that situation where they're so stimulated by everything around them, and then we try to bring them down from there. It's just, it's such an opposite way of working with things. Okay, so you're talking about a young puppy. You're working on somebody approaching and then potentially greeting, potentially not greeting. Are there other tactics that you might do in there? Say you have a really, really friendly puppy who is just eager as anything to go and greet anyone and everyone. I guess I'm getting at, is it always going to be a greeting situation?
Not necessarily. Yeah, there's going to be many times, where it's just not the right move for that particular puppy. And, and that's why, again, with the McCann method, we can never say, this is what you do in this situation. It's going to depend. It's going to depend on a lot of things. It's going to depend on the situation. It's going to depend on the dog. It's going to depend on the person handling the dog. So in a case where we have a dog that is highly stimulated and overexcited, and great for the puppy that they're that friendly and outgoing, but we don't want to set up a situation where the puppy is overstimulated and then the person comes in and greets. It just makes the situation even worse. So there may be times where I'm going to simply have that person stay at a distance so my puppy can be successful and I can reward that. But I'm not going to set up a situation where my puppy is being rewarded for the overstimulation, because down the line, that's just going to cause so many problems.
Absolutely. And reinforcing that energy as a rule is just, it's not good. It's like giving more sugar to the kid that's at the amusement park with a cotton candy ball in hand and they're already bouncing off the walls. And now you give them some caramel corn on top of that, or a candy apple. And, it's that energy that's being fueled by more energy that is just over the top, overstimulated. So drain the energy out a little bit. And even sometimes even just waiting, holding the collar, feeding the puppy for being calm. Sometimes I'll have people just walk back and forth. I might have somebody come over to help me train my puppy. I want you to 10 feet away from me. I just want you to stand there, or I just want you to walk back and forth. And as that person's walking by, I am, yes, and feeding my puppy with my hand on the collar for them being totally chill and relaxed. It has nothing to do with greeting. It's all just about being calm in the presence of that person. And then I might bring them closer. I might bring them closer and closer until I get to the point where my puppy has gotten so used to sitting calmly with my hand in the collar as this person walks by that they're barely even noticing them anymore. And then at that point, I might say, okay, now you can say hi. And I've got this nice interaction, ideally, where the puppy is calm and there's some energy drained out. And of course, I have the opportunity in that setup as well to say to the person, this is what I would like you to do with my puppy. If he gets up or if he tries to struggle away from the collar hold that I'm doing, please back away immediately. So that the puppy starts to learn as well that there's a negative consequence to that behavior where they lose the opportunity to have that person that they really wanted to greet close, etc. So,
and the thing as well is that you want to set this situation up with somebody that is going to be willing to help you. The person on the street or at the park that says, oh, I love dogs, I don't mind, they're not going to help your cause at all. So you want to make sure that you have the person on board, and, training the human sometimes is harder than training the dog in that situation. A fact. So we want to make sure that we're, we've got the human on board so they can help us do or follow our plan.
Yeah, well-meaning people will say, oh, I don't mind if he jumps on me. And then you have that debate in your head. Yeah. Okay, do I push it with a stranger that I don't know and potentially get into this deeper conversation, or do I just smile and then fix it later? So it's always nice to be able to instruct and guide the person and have the person respond in the way that you would expect or you would like. Let's just talk briefly before we have to call it quits on this episode. Let's just talk briefly about dealing with an older dog. So let's say, for example, you've just adopted a friendly dog from a shelter. It's a new dog to you. It's, it's a little bit older, maybe 2 years old. Let's just put this hypothetical in place right now. So you bring this 2-year-old dog home. Say it's a lab, so it's super friendly, super friendly
Leave
dog.
it to the labs.
Yeah, of course, we love the labs. They're just all around good dogs. So you've got this super friendly lab that is boisterous and bouncing all over the place. Where do you start in that situation?
I am going to start teaching that dog to sit.
Beautiful. Is there anybody there?
Nobody is
Exactly.
around. I
Love
am
it.
working somewhere where there is no distraction. I'm in my white room with nothing around me, and I'm setting the dog up for success by making it easy. So I would start by just working a sit. We want to teach the dogs how to be able to hold a sit, and we see a lot of dogs, they learn to sit quickly on command, but they sit for 2 seconds and then they're off doing their thing again. We want them to learn that when you're told to sit, the expectation is you park your butt on the floor or the ground and you keep it there no matter what until I say to you, okay, and release you. So first thing we're going to do is work on teaching that dog to sit. There's no other person involved in this situation. It's only once the dog has a really reliable response to sit and an ability to hold a sit with lots of different distractions before I would even have a human enter the scene.
Absolutely. And that's brilliant. There's no, when it comes to dogs, there's no wisdom in obedience that comes with age. There's not this automatic understanding of anything just because they're a little bit older. All they know is how to be a better dog. They don't necessarily know how to be a better dog in a human world. So what is important is that we take our time with that dog, even if you think, oh, this dog has had training before. You might know this dog has had training before him. Maybe you brought this dog home because your cousin could no longer take care of it, and you know that they did training with this dog. What do you think that you should expect at that point, Rob?
Nothing.
Exactly.
Nothing.
And why?
It's a totally different situation.
Yes. Brilliant. Dogs are so situational. And something I always like to try to clarify with my students is dogs actually learn sounds. They don't learn words. They don't learn what a word means. So when I say sit and you say sit, it potentially sounds very different to the dog. So in addition to that, we have a different situation. We have different expectations. We have a dog that may or may not thoroughly have understood those commands to begin with. Maybe he had training, but there was still holes in that training, for example. In any of these cases, when you bring a new dog into your home, assume no prior knowledge.
Absolutely.
Assume you're starting from scratch so that you can be the best leader and trainer for that dog that you can be. Because if you assume prior knowledge and then you don't get the results that you're hoping for, you will end up in a situation where you're frustrated, and then it starts to go down that adversarial road where you're calling the dog stubborn, etc. So take your time, treat them like they are brand new to all of this stuff, and start right from scratch with them. I mean, obviously it's not baby puppy situation if it's a 2-year-old dog, but we're not going to assume that they know how to sit just because they're 2 years old. So even the simplest of commands, start from the beginning, work through, build a solid foundation, do some proofing, and then start to test it out there in the real world.
And things might progress really quickly if the dog does already have some skills, and you work together well as a team, the dog could very well progress very quickly. But you can't go in making the assumption that the dog knows how to do this and expect that they're going to do it and then be disappointed when it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because I think it's so important to note that every dog is going to learn at a different rate. They all have previous experience or not. They all have different ways of learning. They all have different motivations. There's no hard and fast rule in terms of how much time. It's like we have a ballpark, sort of like when we send kids off to school. We have a ballpark that primary school is going to be 1 to 5 or whatever the designation is. Some students can do it faster and some students need more time, and they all learn a little bit differently. So it doesn't make them good or bad. It just means that we need to approach it in a way that's going to help that student. And it's the same with our dogs. We need to approach things in a way that is going to help that dog. And if you're not getting the results that you want, Trying a different tactic is often a good way to go. And sometimes you just need to dig in and keep training on that same thing. Sometimes they just need more repetition, etc. Alrighty. Well, we're getting a little bit long with this episode, and I think we've really covered a lot of the things that I wanted to cover. I'm glad we got so much talk in about counter surfing, because I know that that's something that people really struggle with. So I want to leave it with saying that it's always best to approach things and set your dog up for success versus having to come back from a mistake that's already in place and something that's already had a lot of self-rewarding from the dog, etc. So try to look at things from the onset and see how you can manipulate your world so that your dog can be successful and can learn through that success. And that means a lot of management and a lot of training and repetition. And if you are looking for a structured program and some guidance and support to help you through all of this, we have programs for puppies as young as not born yet, all the way up through all of the basic foundation obedience training available in our online dog training school. So if you would like some help and guidance from the McCann Dogs trainers, come and work with Robbie and myself. We are very heavy in support. Robbie and I are both on support 5 days a week.
It.
Absolutely. We have more fun than the students do in almost all cases, but we're on support 5 days a week, and we absolutely love helping the students find their feet with their dogs. So if you want some guidance and you want to come and work with Robbie and myself and the rest of the McCann Dogs team, see what we have in the McCann Dogs homeschool, and we hope to see you. On that note, I'm Shannon.
I'm Robbie.
Happy training.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the McCann Dogs podcast. And if you'd like some more training resources, be sure to check us out on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at McCann Dogs. And if you'd like to train with us online, be sure to check out the show notes below for our My Dog Can online training program, where we know in just a few weeks your dog will become a well-behaved family member. Until then, happy training.